PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi. I've been sent in a really beautiful game played by one of my viewers in the Sicilian Kalashnikov opening. So the opening starts like this: e4, knight f3. So it's an open Sicilian, and black plays this move e5, challenging the knight straight away. And the main line, the best line for white, is knight b5. Then we play d6. So this is the start of the Kalashnikov variation. So, having written a book and a Chessable course on the Kalashnikov, I feel a sense of ownership over this opening. And practically every day, I check out the latest tournament games to see if there have been any developments in the lines that I recommend. It's all very well preparing and researching an opening and putting down these lines, but when you send out these lines, these opening variations into the great wide world after you've done a book, you never quite know how they're going to fare. So that's why I was particularly pleased to see this game, which follows one of my recommendations for a very long way, actually. So this game was played in January. It's a blitz game played on Chess, and I don't know the player playing white, Patrick Kawana, and Twilight Princess is playing black. That's not their real name. Okay, so here we go. There are two main moves in this position. So there's knight c3. Very sensible, bringing a piece into the game. Or there's c4, and that was played here. So this is critical because I'm very ambitious. White attempts to clamp black in the centre. And my recommendation in the book was to do this fianchetto, g6. And I think this is the most dynamic way to play. You can see that this bishop, although blocked in by the pawn on e5, it might support this knight going into d4, as I call this in the course, the Trojan horse coming into d4. So both sides, castle, kingside, and bishop e3. Now, rook c8 is an important move. Very often there's going to be pressure on that pawn on c4. And here in the book I examine three main moves. f3 as played in this game, and there's also b3 and queen d2. But okay, f3 played here. Now f3 makes sense because very often this pawn can be vulnerable when black breaks out with a move like b5. This knight can be distracted. So f3 is logical. And it could be that this knight wants to come into d5, so that means that the e-pawn is now protected. But, every move has pros and cons. And the disadvantage to this move is that it allows black to play knight h5. So obviously the bishop's diagonal is blocked, and the knight can start to activate and potentially hit that beautiful square on f4. So, in this game, white played knight d5. And in fact, we're following a game that I examined on this channel a couple of years ago. Pichot against Giri. Yes, Anish Giri played this with black. And in that game, Pichot played queen takes d5, but that queen got into trouble very quickly after knight d4, and Giri won with a very nice attack, actually. So c takes d5, and I examine this in the course and in the book. Now, if the knight goes back, it's possible, but if possible, we would really like to throw that knight forward. So this is the Trojan horse, and it's a pawn sacrifice. but it just opens up diagonals and opens up lines for black. So white took this, pawn takes, bishop takes, so white is a pawn up. But after this move, knight f4, black gets really nice counterplay. And in the book, I examined rook f2 in this position, which guards the bishop and guards the g-pawn as well. And I'll look at that at the end of the game. But in this game, white played rook e1, guarding the bishop. Right, I'd like you to have a think in this position. What should black play here? In fact, Twilight Princess did not play the strongest move. They, I don't know, played a good move, but not the best move. So what is black's best move in this position? Okay, you have a think, I'll have a drink. So the best move here is rook c2. Queen g5 was played in the game, which is good, but rook c2 is definitely the best move. So you can see that the bishop is attacked, and be careful because g2 is vulnerable as well. And if bishop f1, well, there are two good moves here. This is possible. Obviously, bishop takes queen g5, and there's no good defense to queen takes bishop. So rook e2 is best, but obviously black has a fantastic position there. Materially is even, but I mean, black completely dominates that position with these pieces. Controlling the c file, the knight is wonderful. Bad bishop, good knight, great attack. In fact, queen g5 is even stronger, because if g3, look at that second rank, queen h5 is winning straight away actually. And if king h1, then rook takes g2, and black's attack is just fantastic, because after, well, I mean, white can't do very much in this position actually. But let's say white plays here, then actually this rook just comes into the game like this, and there's no good defense here. So, for example, this, you can sack the rook, and then, okay, the queen just runs amok here. Now you want to play rook h5, but that's pinned at the moment, but f6 threatens this, and white has to give up the queen. But that's completely winning for black. So, I mean, that's just an example of what could happen. So rook c2 is the best move here, with a crushing attack. In fact, in the game, queen g5 was played, which is a good move, but as we've seen, not the best. Actually, white collapses straight away. g3 is the best move. And I think, I mean, this is very hard for white to defend. You know, a series, you have to find a series of only moves. King f1 is the only move here, not a pretty move. f5, piece sack. Now, black has full compensation here for the piece. You know, the computer will tell you that white can defend this position, but it's incredibly difficult. That would have been white's best, however. But off queen g5, bishop f1 was played, and that really is decisive. So we've seen this already. If bishop takes knight, then rook c2 wins, and queen takes bishop. And in the game, f4 was played, and a very nice way to finish the game. Knight takes e1, check. Because if pawn takes queen, knight f3, check. picks up the queen, and black is a whole rook up. So it looks like this variation is doing very well. As I said, let me come back to this position. This is where white played rook e1 and this loses. In the book, I actually examined rook f2. So it's a stronger move. But black still has excellent compensation for the pawn. In the book, I gave h5. I really like this move, actually. So at the moment, the knight can't be driven away because of knight h3 check. Therefore, king h1, h4. And here, I left the variation. I mean, we're 20 moves into the game. And my comment was, black controls the c-file and wants to follow up with queen g5. And it's very hard for white to shake black's hold over the position. Tremendous compensation for the pawn. But let me continue a little bit. So I think the critical move here is g3. You know, if this knight isn't driven from f4, then I think black has a really good position. Queen g5, you can look to double on the c-file. So g3 has got to be critical. So what do we play? Well, knight h5. So putting more pressure on that g3 pawn. And of course, if pawn takes, then the queen comes in. I mean, this is beautiful. And then the knight can always go back to f4. White could play g4, but that knight would then be so stable on f4. And positionally, that's absolutely wonderful for black. Okay, so, but what about rook g1? I mean, that has to be critical, you know, keeping hold of the f4 square. But then black exchanges, queen g5, more pressure here. Now, nice tactic again, if f4, critical, actually black wins with this, check. And if king g2, knight e2, pawn takes queen, knight takes queen. So white plays rook h2. There's another tricky move. So if knight g3, watch out, that's mate in the corner. But black has rook c1 and still has very nice pressure. I mean, at this point, you can see that g3 could be in trouble. So g4 is necessary. An exchange. And rook c8. Well, watch out. Bishop d1. I mean, this is very hard to defend. I mean, I'm playing the best moves according to the computer, but black still has tremendous compensation here. You can see that, you know, with black's pieces crawling in on the dark squares, this is really hard for white to defend. But that represents best play for white, actually, in that particular line. So all in all, this line is faring very well for black, and it's great to see the whole variation being crowned with success in this particular game. So well done to Twilight Princess, and thank you very much for sending this game in. I'll be giving you more Kalashnikov updates on the channel, and yeah, do check out the games that I've already posted there. By the way, one further thing, little bit of an announcement for my patrons, those who've subscribed on patreon.com/PowerPlayChess. I'll be running a series of patron-only broadcasts. So do check out the information that I'll be posting on patreon.com very shortly. So it'll only be for Patreon. So if you want to subscribe to patreon.com/PowerPlayChess, then please do. I've got some patron-only broadcasts coming up in the next few weeks.